This is another breaking story coming through this afternoon. Former apartheid security police officer Joao Rodrigues has died. He was on trial for the murder of anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timol nearly 50 years ago. Timol's nephew, Imtiaz Cajee, joins us live now for reaction to the news. Imtiaz, thank you for your time. So just your reaction to the passing on of Joao Rodrigues.
Good afternoon, Tula Sizwe. One is filled with mixed emotions. His strategy by his legal counsel has paid off. As we approach 4 years since the historic verdict by Judge Motley on the 12th of October 2017, his criminal trial has never commenced. He had over 19 court appearances, Tula Sizwe. And, he goes to his grave with what really happened to my beloved uncle. Angry, upset. Government must be held accountable for its dismal failure in dealing with my uncle's matter as well as other TRC matters. And I think there are many that are very content of him passing on because he takes those secrets to his graves, including those within the ANC, who were very, very reluctant on supporting me post the 2017 inquest.
So you say he takes his secrets to the grave. Just for those who didn't follow the inquest closely, or perhaps those who need a refresher of what transpired, how key was he how key a cog was he in the apartheid security machinery that was central to your uncle's death at John Foster Square?
Look, Tula Sizwe, he placed himself on the crime scene. This in the 1972 inquest as well as the one in 2017, where he reiterated his version that he was the last person in the room with my uncle, in room 1026 at the notorious John Foster Square police station. And according to his version, my uncle was free of any injuries. He darted across the table and jumped to his death. When we heard from a forensic pathologist as well as a trajectory expert that it was not possible for him to have seen my uncle without any ante-mortem injuries on his body. And this is the version that he had stuck upon. So it was very, very clear that, he was blatantly lying at the 72 as well as the 2017 inquest. And that is why it was critical for him to have his day in court, so that he could be held accountable for my uncle's death.
And just his demeanor, Imtiaz, as a person who is accused, and also initially as a person who was part of the people who were in that room when Ahmed Timol died in 1972. Just his demeanor and willingness to, embrace the fact that you as a family and others and society in general had questions about the death of Ahmed Timol. Did he come across as someone who was willing to, at any stage, give out anything, or was he belligerent?
Look, I can tell you, during the duration of the 2017 inquest, Tula Sizwe, his level of arrogance was absolutely shocking and frightening. And it was a level of confidence and that he had within himself that absolutely nothing would happen to him. Once the inquest findings was reversed and reality sunk in that he was going to face criminal charges, which one must commend the DPP in Gauteng, Andrew Chauke, for ensuring that, that he got charged. His demeanor changed over the years, Tula Sizwe. I mean, I've made it a point in the 19 court appearances that he has had, attending absolutely most of them. And I can tell you he felt the heat in the end, despite the fact that his criminal trial did not commence. And, we've reached out to him consistently. Judge Motley did that in the 2017 inquest. I've done it consistently. That all that was needed was for him to speak the truth. Make an honest confession of what transpired, what were the circumstances that led to my uncle's death, who were the role players and stakeholders involved in my uncle's arrest, his subsequent death. And, we can then look at genuine reconciliation in this country. Because we need to go back to the TRC. Rodrigues was not subpoenaed at the TRC, like many, many other apartheid-era perpetrators, and the TRC itself must be held accountable for that. So I personally gave him, Tula Sizwe, ample opportunity to come forward, to make a full disclosure, so that we can resolve this particular matter and we can move on with our lives. But obviously he chose to the contrary. And the reality is that he goes to his grave with the answers of what really happened to my uncle.
And lastly then, Imtiaz, how many more of the apartheid-era security agents and others implicated in the TRC crimes? And let's be specific here. We are talking about prosecutions that were the recommendation of the TRC itself a creature of statute. So these are prosecutions that should lawfully have followed following the release of the report of the TRC. But as you and I sit here, we now know that at various points there were instructions that said, let these matters die a natural death. We've seen rumblings that they might be rumbling back to life with the work of the Hawks and the NPA. But how critical is it that that work gathers steam, given that a lot of the people we're dealing with, are not young anymore?
No, most certainly it's a very important point, Tulasi. I mean, if we just look in my uncle's matter, there were 2 other security branch officers found guilty at the 2017 inquest, Neville Else and Seth Sons, and Judge Billy Morty ruled that they must be investigated, for assault and for perjury. The NPA then come back 30 months later, making a decision not to charge them. And our legal team have obviously made representation to the NDPP to revisit that decision. I mean, the wives of the Craddock 4 have passed on. If you look at the Dr. Neil Aggett inquest, the NPA only reopened the inquest when the senior interrogator Stephen Whitehead passed on. They did the same thing in the Dr. Hussein Havaji inquest. They waited for Jimmy Taylor to pass on. So there's a clear, consistent pattern on the part of the NPA for apartheid-era perpetrators to pass on, for them not to be held accountable, for them to take their heinous crimes to the graves with them, leaving families like myself as a nephew and families across the country without the key answers that they are desperately searching for.
All right. Imtiaz Cajee, thank you so much for talking to me this afternoon. He's the nephew of the late Ahmed Timol. He was reacting there to the death of Joao Rodrigues, who was undergoing a trial for that death and killing of Ahmed Timol in 1972, I believe it was.